halwa, uh, khichdi, whatever can be arranged as much as possible. Tamal Krishna and Giriraj have all the ideas. Attendance surpassed that of the Bombay Pandal with 20 to 30,000 people attending daily, including ministers of parliament and other distinguished speakers. It was one of the biggest religious functions Calcutta had ever seen. The whole city became aware of the strength of the Hare Krishna movement. In the early afternoon, the devotees would begin selling Prabhupada's books from a booth, performing kirtan on stage, and distributing prasadam to the masses. Around 6:30, the evening program would begin with a long, intense kirtan, which would increase in its fervor as Prabhupada arrived for the evening aarti before the deities of Radha and Krishna. Prabhupada would lecture, sometimes in Bengali and sometimes in English. Afterward, the devotees would show slides of the Krishna consciousness movement around the world, and Prabhupada would answer questions from the audience. After the program, people would push forward to receive a morsel of the prasadam that had been offered to the deity. Naxalite terrorists threatened Prabhupada's life. These young communist terrorists who had been active in Calcutta during Prabhupada's visit of 1970 had never disturbed him until now. Their tactic was to approach prominent businessmen in their homes or on the street and coerce them into cooperation with Naxalite political objectives. If a businessman refused, the Naxalites would burn his home or place of business or even assassinate him. The Naxalites, who were eager for all of Bengal to turn from their religious traditions and embrace communism, saw Prabhupada rekindling the religious spirit in Calcutta. Prabhupada's tremendous crowd gathering pandal, they concluded, was undermining the principles of communism. Fly or die, read the note Prabhupada received. He informed the police, who regretted their inability to help. The whole of Calcutta, they said, was in terror of the Naxalites. Prabhupada, however, refused to be intimidated. He would not fly. Even if they were to attack him, he said, what better way for a Vaishnava to leave his body than while preaching the glories of the Lord? The next night, as Prabhupada came before the crowd to speak, he noticed a group of rowdy young men, Naxalites, near the stage. They were protesting the preferential seating of certain dignitaries on stage. When one young radical shouted that the radicals themselves wanted to dance on stage, the devotees invited them to join in a kirtan. The Naxalites backed down, but continued shouting and disrupting the meeting. They began banging the seats of the wooden folding chairs, calling out Naxalite slogans and threatening to burn the place down. Others in the audience began talking nervously among themselves, increasing the commotion. In a vain attempt to bring order, some of the devotees threatened the dissenters. Pushing and scuffling broke out in the audience. Chintamani prakara sadma shukalpa vriksha lakshavriteshu surabhi abhipalayantam. Prabhupada's voice rang over the powerful loudspeaker system. Appearing uninterested in the crowd, depending only on Krishna, he began singing prayers from Brahma Samhita, and within minutes everyone quieted. Those who wanted to leave left, and those who wanted to stay sat down. The crowd subdued, Prabhupada lectured. Several more fly or die notes came, and the Naxalites returned the next night, threatening again to burn the pandal. Call them, Prabhupada said. I will meet with them. The devotees thought it unsafe, but Prabhupada insisted. In a small room behind the pandal, Prabhupada spoke with the hostile youths. They were angry and disrespectful at first, but as Prabhupada explained to them the Vedic concept of communism, with Krishna at the center, he caught their interest. They agreed to allow Prabhupada's meetings to continue without any further disruptions. Achyutananda Swami, the last night of the 10-day Pandal program was a grand finale, with over 40,000 people attending. I had just stepped out to get sugarcane juice. The Pandal was completely packed when I left, but when I got outside, I saw rivers of people flowing through the four main gates into the Pandal tent. I thought this must be Krishna's mystic power, because the tent was already packed and still thousands of people were entering it. I thought that Krishna must be unlimitedly expanding the dimensions of space. The climax of the evening was a big procession, beginning at the Pandal and going up Park Street to the ISKCON temple on Albert Road. The deities of Radha Govinda rode on a palanquin to the temple, where they were placed on the altar. After an aarti in the temple, the remaining crowd dispersed. Achitananda Swami was standing next to Prabhupada that night in the Calcutta temple. Prabhupada, he said, someone put Krishna's flute in backward. Prabhupada looked. It was backward. Krishna is all powerful, he said, turning to Achitananda Swami. He can play from the back end also. Srila Prabhupada was striving for a plot of land in Mayapur, having abandoned the idea that his godbrothers in Mayapur might help. He had been working through Bengali friends negotiating with Muslim farmers in Mayapur. On returning from Australia, Prabhupada had sent Tamal Krishna to Mayapur with orders not to come back until he had purchased land. Tamal Krishna's mission was successful, and after 6 days he returned to Prabhupada in Calcutta, having purchased 9 bighas, 3 acres in Mayapur. Conceiving the value of Mayapur was difficult for the devotees, however. One devotee journeyed from Calcutta to see the new ISKCON property, and on returning, asked Prabhupada, what are we going to do there? It's just a big empty field. Nothing is there. Because there are no factories and cars, Prabhupada replied, therefore you think there is nothing to do. But we are going to chant Hare Krishna in Mayapur. We will build a big temple there, and all the devotees in the world can go out and chant Hare Krishna in the place of Lord Chaitanya's birth. On May 28, Prabhupada wrote, you will be glad to learn that we have purchased about 5 acres of land in Mayapur, the birthside of Lord Chaitanya, and we have proposed to hold a nice festival there from Janmashtami Day for 2 weeks. At that time, the foundation stone will be set down. I wish that all our leading disciples come to India at the same time. There are 50 branches, so at least one from each branch should attend the function. I'll just read a little bit more until this June 1971 is finished. June 1971. For months, Prabhupada had been planning to visit Moscow. Aside from his desire to preach to the Russian people, he had a specific meeting in mind with a Russian Indology professor, Gigi Kotovsky. Professor Kotovsky headed the Department of Indian and South Asian Studies at Moscow's USSR Academy of Sciences, and Prabhupada had been corresponding with him for a year. Krishnadas in West Germany, with the help of Dr. Bernhardt of the University of Hamburg, had obtained the names of other Russian scholars of Indology. A letter to Krishnadas in December of 1970 had revealed Prabhupada's plan for preaching in Russia. I'm very encouraged to see your enthusiasm for preaching this message to the Russian people, and your idea to send letters with the help of Dr. Bernhardt is very good. He is a big scholar and he also appreciates our movement. So if you arrange a tour of Russia for me, I am prepared to accept. Let us see what Krishna desires. If we can go to Russia with our World Sankirtan Party, I am certain that it will be very much appreciated, and people will see the real peace movement is chanting process, chanting of the holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So try for it. Srila Prabhupada had coached Krishna Das on how to best cultivate the Russian Indologists. You can ask them some questions like, what is the ultimate goal of life? What is your ideal ultimate goal of life? What is the difference between animal and human life? Why is religion accepted by all kinds of civilized society? What is your conception of original creation, sorry. In this way, questions may be put to find out what is their standing. We do not grudge an atheist, provided he has got some philosophical standing. In this way, try to elicit some answers from the professors. If you can finally establish one Moscow center, it will be a great credit to you. So far, studying Russian language, it is not necessary. But if you do so, it is all right. I want very much a center in Russia. So for the time being, I shall desire that Moscow center. In March 1971, Professor Gigi Kotovsky had replied to Krishnadas's letter. I thank you for the information. I thank you for your information about Swami Bhaktivedantha's lecturing tour. If he would come to Moscow, the Soviet scholars doing research in ancient Indian culture would be very happy to meet him in the Institute of Oriental Studies, USSR Academy of Sciences. I would be thankful to you for your information on the date of Swami Bhaktivedantha's arrival and stay in the USSR. Srila Prabhupada had personally replied to Professor Kotovsky. It was understood that you and your university are interested in hearing about Krishna culture and philosophy. This ancient Krishna culture and philosophy is the oldest in the world or in the universe, at least from a historical point of view. It is not less than 5,000 years ago. Perhaps you may know that I have started this cultural movement since 1966, and it is already spreading all over the world. Krishna culture is so popular in India that even the government attracts many foreigners by Air India timetable to visit Vrindavan, the land of Krishna culture. Enclosed, please find one page from the latest Air India timetable, April 1971, wherein the Krishna culture is depicted for general attraction. My life is dedicated to spreading this Krishna culture all over the world. I think if you give me a chance to speak about the great Krishna culture and philosophy in your country, you will very much appreciate this simple program with great profit. The culture is so well planned that it would be acceptable by any thoughtful man throughout the whole world. Having preached a year in the Eastern Hemisphere, Prabhupada was eager to return to the West, and he planned to fly to Moscow and on to Europe. For Prabhupada and his traveling companions, Shyam Sundar and Aravinda, getting tourist visas for Russia was simple. They would take a 5-day government-controlled tour, with every activity planned by the Soviet Tourist Bureau and everything paid for in advance. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Um, and we'll just move for Jai Radha Madhava. So Jayo Radha Madhava, Jayo Kunja Bihari, Jayo Radha Madhava, Jayo Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jayo Girivaradhari, Jayo Radha Madhava, Jayo Kunja Bihari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jayo Radha Madhava, Jayo Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Radha Giridhari Shri Radhe. Jayo Radha Giridhari Shri Radhe. Jayo Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Shubhadra. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. We'll just start with the verse. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tatho Jayam Udirayet Shrinvadam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Hridyantastohya Bhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. I'll just share my screen for today's verse. So athacha tasmad ubhayathapi hi karmasmin atmana samsara vapanam udharanti. Would anyone else like to read the verse? Or recite the verse, sorry?
हरे कृष्ण माता जानवी
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
अथो च तस्माद् उभयथापि हि कर्मस्मिन् आत्मनः সংসারাবাপনম উদাহরন্তি। হরে কৃষ্ণ।
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
হরে কৃষ্ণ মাতাজি।
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
অথ চ তস্মাদ উভয়থাপি হি কর্মস্মিন আত্মনঃ সংসার অবপনম উদাহরন্তি। হরে কৃষ্ণ।
Hare Krishna. So moving on to the word by word. Atha, now, cha, and tasmat, because of this, ubhayata api, both in this life and in the next, he, undoubtedly, karma, fruitive actions, asmin, on this path of sense enjoyment, atmana, of the living entity, samsara, of material life, avapanam, the cultivation ground or source, udaharanti, the authorities of the Vedas say. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Learned scholars and transcendentalists therefore condemn the materialistic path of fruitive activity because it is the original source and breeding ground of material miseries, both in this life and in the next. Not knowing the value of life, karmis create situations whereby they suffer in this life and the next. Unfortunately, karmis are very attached to material sense gratification, and they cannot appreciate the miserable condition of material life, neither in this life nor in the next. Therefore, the Vedas enjoin that one should awaken to spiritual consciousness and utilize all his activities to attain favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord Himself says in Bhagavad Gita 9:27, Yat karosi yadasnasi yat juhosi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva mad arpanam. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. The results of all one's activities should be utilized not for sense gratification, but for the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord gives all information in Bhagavad Gita about the aim of life, and at the end of Bhagavad Gita, He demands surrender unto Him. People do not generally like this demand, but one cultivates spiritual knowledge for many births, eventually surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Bahunam janmanam ante Gyanavan mam prapadyate. So just with this, I would also like to read the translation and purport of Bhagavad Gita 9:27. So yat karosi yat asnasi yat juhosi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva mad arpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. And purport. Thus, it is the duty of everyone to mold his life in such a way that he will not forget Krishna in any circumstance. Everyone has to work for maintenance of his body and soul together, and Krishna recommends herein that one should work for him. Everyone has to eat something to live, therefore he should accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna. Any civilized man has to perform some religious ritualistic ceremonies, therefore Krishna recommends do it for me, and this is called archana. Everyone has a tendency to give something in charity. Krishna says, give it to me, and this means that all surplus money accumulated should be utilized in furthering the Krishna consciousness movement. Nowadays, people are very much inclined to the meditational process, which is not practical in this age. But if anyone practices on meditating Krishna 24 hours a day by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra round his beads, he is surely the greatest meditator and the greatest yogi, as substantiated by the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So just with these two verses, with Krishna's Bhagavad Gita 9:27 and also 5:14-23, the Srimad Bhagavatam verse, it's basically explaining the fruitive activities and how one can only act for material results, which then leads to miseries. And one of the main key points out of this is that material enjoyment seems attractive from far away, but it also traps the person. And if and from Srila Prabhupada's Lila Amrita, where we were reading about the Russian professors or Russian researchers into um, the Russian Indologists, um, and basically you can ask them some questions like, what is the ultimate goal of life? Your ideal ultimate goal of life? What is the difference between animal and human life? Why is religion accepted by all kinds of civilized society? What is your conception of the original creation? So that's basically saying that it's basically understanding the higher purpose of life is to ask these questions to understand Krishna and surrender unto Krishna, which is what Krishna demands. And if there is no inquiry about um, the purpose of understanding Krishna, of getting away from the cycle of karma, then we are basically just AIs with hair, skin, and nails because just like an AI, you can ask it, you can give it a chat prompt, and it will execute all of these functions for us, but it's never going to question the why it does what it does. And again, any material enjoyment, how it seems very attractive, but it traps consciousness because the layer is lust, anger, and greed. So similar to the ocean, for example, in West Auckland, we've got Piha and how from far away, all these waves and everything, how it will look very beautiful, even if it's rough. But if we are closer to the beach, closer to the waves, and if we get stuck, then we're stuck. And similarly, if there's a life which is trapped in Maya, it looks very nice and very calm, but once we're stuck, we're stuck. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's also the verse, Krishna hoy Surya sama Maya hoy andhakar. So Krishna, he's basically the sun, and humans, because there was a tendency, or the soul, because it wanted to move away from Krishna and outshine Krishna, it can be basically compared to glowworms. And these glowworms, they only shine where there's darkness in those caves. But the sun, it can shine otherwise, even outside. But glowworms need darkness to shine. And even if all of these glowworms, even if all of them come together, the power will still not be enough to outshine the sun. So basically, they need darkness, and for this conditioned soul, the darkness is given to them to learn. And yeah, and just one of the other verses, I was listening to a class on this, and even that class referred to this other verse. That was Srimad Bhagavatam 555. And this is Lord Rishabdev again talking about the inquiry of life. So I'll just read the translation and purport for this. Translation: As long as one does not inquire about the spiritual values of life, one is defeated and subjected to miseries arising from ignorance. Be it sinful or pious, karma has its resultant actions. If a person is engaged in any kind of karma, his mind is called karmatmaka, colored with fruitive activity. As long as the mind is impure, consciousness is unclear, and as long as one is absorbed in fruitive activity, he has to accept a material body. And purport: Generally, people think that one should act very piously in order to be relieved from miseries, but this is not a fact. Even though one engages in pious activity and speculation, he is nonetheless defeated. His only aim should be emancipation from the clutches of Maya and all material activities. Speculative knowledge and pious activity do not solve the problems of material life. One should be inquisitive to understand his spiritual position, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 437. यथा यथैधंसि समिद्धोऽग्निर् भस्मसत् कुरुते अर्जुन ज्ञानाग्नि सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसत् कुरुते तथा. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. Unless one understands the self and its activities, one has to be considered in material bondage. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.32, It is also stated, Ye anye anavindaksha vimukta maninastve asta bhavad avishuddha budaya. A person who does not have knowledge of devotional service may think himself liberated, but actually he's not. Aruhya Krichrena param padam tata patanti adho anadrita yushmad angrahya. Such people may approach the impersonal Brahman effulgence, but they fall down again into material enjoyment, because they have no knowledge of devotional service. As long as one is interested in karma and jnana, he continues enduring the miseries of material life, birth, old age, disease, and death. Karmis suddenly take on one body after another. As far as Gyanis are concerned, unless they are promoted to the topmost understanding, they must return to the material world. As explained in Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanavan Mam Prapadyate. The point is to know Krishna Vasudeva as everything and surrender unto him. Karmis don't know this, but a devotee who is 100% engaged in the devotional service of the Lord knows fully what is karma and jnana. Therefore, a pure devotee is no longer interested in karma and jnana. Anya abhilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam. The real bhakta is untouched by any tinge of karma and jnana. His only purpose in life is to serve the Lord. So, with this verse again, if when the mind is impure, then consciousness is clouded, which then puts us in the cycle of material existence. And religious piety, just that wouldn't only guarantee Krishna being understanding Krishna. For that, real self-inquiry is needed, um, as it was also said in this, in the purport of this verse as well. So religious piety that basically just puts one into more speculation, and understanding Krishna, surrendering unto Krishna, or going through that path of true spirituality, gives emancipation from the clutches of Maya, and the inquisitiveness to understand about Krishna, about the spiritual position, and breaking free from the clutches of Maya, lust, anger, and greed, and actions that are performed in this. So basically, true spirituality would be taking shelter in Krishna and using the body and mind for inquiry and not just sense gratification. So just the quick AI example that I gave earlier, that we can put in a prompt, but even if we put in a prompt and it'll answer it back to us, but even then, that AI tool, because it doesn't have any consciousness, it doesn't have the ability to go in and question why is it doing what it's doing. So if there's a mind and that mind does not have the inquisitiveness to self-inquire, it's basically just a programmed AI with hair, skin, and nails. And into this AI tool, this AI mind, all the data is the desires, egos, habits, any previous samskaras that one holds, that's there. And the output of that is these repeated patterns of action, making one stuck in the making one stuck in the material world of birth, death, old age, and disease. So when there's self-inquiry and when there is surrender, that's when, from simply being a robot, the mind takes on to soul-guided intelligence. The soul looks at what's conditioning it, the three modes of material nature, lust, anger, and greed, Maya, desire to, to lord it over material nature, or like that glowworm's example, desire to outshine the sun. Once it once this self-inquiry, and as Krishna demands surrender in 927 as well, that's when their soul-guided intelligence, or artificial intelligence, and Atma intelligence. So and so yeah, so we can't be AIs or Tesla's robot with skin, hair, and nails. and just acting on whatever's been prompted, whatever's been fed, and doing those very predictable outputs. And the same way, if there's endless activities, working, earning, and producing without pausing to ask, what is the purpose of life? What is the ultimate goal of life? What is the difference between animal and human life? Then, and who is the enjoyer? And even after doing so much, even after doing so much endeavor, why is there still a lack of satisfaction in what we're doing? And again, even in 5:14:23, how it says, learned scholars and transcendentalists therefore condemn the materialistic path, the fruit of activity, because it is the original source and breeding ground of material miseries, both in this life and the next. So even these actions that just get us entangled more and more, they are the breeding ground of misery. And back to the 555 verse, focusing on the word karmatmaka. The actual translation of that, or the word by word, it's absorbed in material activities. And in this AI metaphor, basically just means that the mind that is coded or that is programmed by lust, anger, and greed, or by the modes of material nature. And the real task is and that's basically machine learning gone wrong, because if there's an AI tool and if it's been coded with the wrong thing, it will be giving us the wrong output. And that wrong output would just be the repeated habits, repeated conditioning. And it won't be only in this life, it would have happened in previous lives, would be happening in the next lives that would come. And AI also, one of the ways that it learns is through constant feedback, through constant patterns. So similarly, the mind, the constant feedback, the constant patterns that the mind has is desire, fear, attachment. And that's when humans also start becoming very predictable, hopefully. Because if desire is the input, then the output is sense gratification. If fear is the input, then anxiety is the uh, output. Or if attachment is the input, then even then also anxiety and greed, that's the output. So 555, 5:14:23, in both of these purports, one of the main things that was said is that spiritual inquiry is important. And if there is no spiritual inquiry, then it's easy for someone to become artificially intelligent, have no questions of why you're doing what you're doing, and get stuck in the repeated cycles of birth and death. But how are we going to feed it the proper data? AI, ChatGPT, Google Notebook, Notion, all of these systems, they're trained with going in with feedback, proper data, human input, human feedback, or even higher quality data to refine its output. So the mind requires that higher quality data that could be hearing and chanting to refine the consciousness. And the best of it all is, as Krishna says in 9:27, Tat Kurusva Mad Arpanam. Whatever, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. Basically surrendering unto Krishna. And that's what Krishna is demanding. So this was a very, very short verse. And even some of the other classes that I was listening, it was also very short. So this is all that I have prepared. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Danvat
Thank you very
Pranam.
much. Thank you very much for the very
Thank you.
nice class.
Thank you,
And the verse
Prabhuji.
was short. And anyway, the main purpose of this chapter as well as this verse is that the material world is like a forest, and whoever enters it without knowing the purpose, I mean, the ultimate purpose, he gets bewildered gradually and gradually, and ultimately he cannot come back to the spiritual world because he gets lost in the material things. So this is the human life also. Unless we know the purpose for which we have come to here, and we know what is our goal, because human life has been endowed by the Lord with a higher intelligence. And if we do not understand that, our life is no different from animal life. And human life and animal life, the difference is only the religion. Religion means knowing the Lord. I mean, the ultimately knowing the rule of the Lord, and that is religion. And so, if we know that, and if we make our life, understand this and implement it in our own life, it is an opportunity for us to rectify ourselves why we come here, not for material enjoyment, and knowing the ultimate purpose of life, we can go back to Godhead. So that is the way. But if a person indulges in material things, he gradually gets involved and remain in the cycle of birth and death, and loses the opportunity he has got in this human form of life, which is a superior intelligence. And so it should be our duty to utilize it for the service of the Lord, and in this way we can go back to Godhead. So thank you very much for this class.
Thank you.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
It appears there is no other person to make comment, so the class may be concluded. Thank you once again for
Thank you,
your
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you. Vanchakalpatarubhasya.
कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा तुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
Hare
अनंत
Krishna.
कोटि
Jai
वैष्णववृंद की जय।
जय।
कृष्ण माता जी
Srila
की
Prabhupada
जय।
ki jai.
प्रभुपाद की जय।
जय।
और प्रेमानंदी हरि
Hare
हरि बोल।
Hare Krishna, everyone, and
हरे
happy
कृष्ण।
Diwali.
हैप्पी दिवाली।
Happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.